morning. How's everybody doing? Okay, that wasn't loud enough. How's everybody doing? All right, you're going to be sitting here till 1 o'clock, so I want to help get your energy up. My name is Brindley Tucker. I am the owner of Your Realty Leverage, which is a recruiting, coaching, consulting firm. We actually coach agents on how to leverage. We coach them on hiring talent, training talent, and finding people to work with to grow your teams, to grow your business, to leverage all of the things that you shouldn't be doing as an agent, all of the things that don't make you money. And then I also own and created Transaction Management Academy. And today we're going to talk a lot about transaction management. How many of you feel like you never have enough time? You can all raise your hands. Okay. How many of you love doing paperwork? Right? So what we're going to talk about today is we're going to talk about how to leverage your contract to close. So a transaction manager, what does a transaction manager do? They're also referred to as a transaction coordinator, a closing coordinator, a transaction specialist. Every year we get a new name. Everybody calls them something different. So I refer to them as a transaction manager because they really are managing the transaction from contract to close. So once you sign, have an executed offer, you would turn over that offer, that contract, to your transaction manager. They are licensed agents, so they then follow it through from the contract to close process. So they help coordinate your inspections. They help meet your contingency deadlines. How many of you have missed a contingency deadline because you were running around showing buyers property and you were too busy? Come on, I know you don't want to embarrass yourself. Some of you have done it, right? So you have someone that's in the office all day that their primary job is to make sure that all of your contingency deadlines are met. They are going to coordinate your inspections and your appraisals. How many of you have, especially in the market we're in, I had 4 contracts last week that came in with 7-day inspection periods. It's a lot to manage, right? We get a busy market, inspectors are overloaded, you're running around with buyers, you're on listing appointments, and you can't keep track of that. So you have somebody that's going to make sure that the inspector gets into the home. If the inspector gets there and their lockbox key isn't working, they're going to be in the office to make sure all of that's coordinated, where you may be with a client. And who wants to be sitting on a listing appointment and say, I'm sorry, can you hold on for a moment? I've got an inspector who doesn't have lockbox access. They're also going to manage your title and lending process. Kevin, I'm going to call on you now, actually. So tell me, as a title rep and the owner of a title agency, how does a transaction manager help you in your title process? I just kind of called him out.
Yeah, really. Extremely much.
Okay. What does that mean?
Many realtors, none of the ones in the room, because you're all Baba agents, so you're brilliant. But a lot of the times the order that we get is a contract that it's a copy of a copy of a copy of a fax and a scan of a copy. And we can't read it, and there's not a lot of stuff to read because the blanks aren't filled out, which contract 101, if there's a blank, fill it out at the end. We don't have forwarding addresses for the seller. We don't know contact information for buyer or seller. We don't know who the other agent is. Sometimes we'll get a contract from an agent, the listing agent who's our client, who sends it to us, and their information isn't on it. We don't know who they are other than the email. And that's the worst case scenario. Best case is we get something from a transaction manager that says, hi, I'm so-and-so, I'm the transaction manager for so-and-so, and here's everything. The contract's attached, it's completely legible, but also in the body of the email are every single detail that we need that I require my people to have, because in the first scenario, my girl, Becky, who is entering the data, is calling the agent, harassing the agent, sometimes upsetting them because it is harassing, saying, we don't have this, we need the email address for your buyer, for the seller, we need all of this stuff, and the transaction manager just gives it to us. And if I were an agent, I would be sending contracts that look like the first one I described, because I'm a sales guy, and salespeople and paper people aren't the same. They're not detail oriented, and why would you spend your time taking the call from Becky and tracking all that stuff down when you can just have someone who does that for a living do it for you, and you can go sell. Right?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Extremely much.
Extremely much, extremely much. And we all love our lenders, right? And we're all in an industry where we're overloaded, and our lenders are overloaded. Their processors are overloaded. You know, you're running around and you have an hour in your office every day and you can't reach the people that you need to reach because they're just as busy as you are. But you have a transaction manager that works office hours, that's there, that can be communicating and making sure that that loan is on track and those conditions are met and that closing disclosure is signed in time so that there's no major hiccups at closing. But yet we think as agents that we can do it all, right? And it's a lot easier to call and coordinate an inspection than it is to call a lead, right? Because all of us love lead generating. I know I do, not. So the next thing is paperwork, right? A lot of you have brokers. Unfortunately, we're a litigious society. I'll call on the state of California to make you all feel good. The state of California has 32 disclosures. Because every time there's a lawsuit in the state of California, they create a disclosure. It's a very litigious state. But we are here in Florida also, right? That's our biggest fear. We are the most sued industry out there. So if you miss something, if you don't have documentation, that can be a big problem. Because there's never a problem until there's a problem, right? You don't get sued in the middle of a real estate transaction. You get sued 2 years, 3 years later. So you want someone that's going to make sure all those T's are crossed, all those I's are dotted. Myself, I'm a very high D. So I read about every 6th word of an email. And I mean, my mother to this day is like, did you read the whole thing? No, I didn't. That's why you have to bullet point with me. So do you think, Alex is raising her hand here because she knows exactly what I'm talking about. That's you, right? Most agents, guys, this isn't a good thing or a bad thing. That's most agents. That's why you're good at selling. Right? Always be closing. Go, go, go. Well, we can't manage a transaction that way. That's how deals fall apart. That's how we get to the closing table and there's a huge mistake and you're not getting paid and the buyer and seller, you know, are at arms because the buyer can't move into their new home. Moving trucks are sitting outside, right? And then they coordinate the closing. So they coordinate your walkthrough, your closing. They schedule it with the buyer, the seller. They make sure that entry to the property is taken care of. Those are all time-consuming things within a transaction that will save you time, right? How happy would your families be, your husbands and wives, if you had more time on your hands to spend with them? I went to dinner last night with a couple, a good family friend, and we were sitting at dinner, and the gentleman, the husband, is an agent. He must have gotten up 6 times from the table to answer his phone because he's doing it all on his own, right? And we don't have to do that. So why do you need a transaction manager? Number 1, so you can focus on money-making activities. What are the 5 things that a real estate agent should be doing? Lead generation, right? Lead follow-up, going on appointments, negotiating contracts, and script practice. Did I say inspections? Did I say appraisals? Did I say paperwork? Nothing you do after you go under contract makes you money. None of it. So why are you doing it? I know I didn't get into real estate to make $10 an hour or $12 an hour or $15 an hour. That's not, I don't work hours for dollars anymore. And I don't think you want to either. And when you're doing all of those items and all those details, you are working at an admin salary rate. That's what you are. You're a glorified admin. You just have a license, right? You can actually increase your production by 12 to 24 more units a year by leveraging your contract to close. We're going to hear from a few agents here in a moment who have increased their business by hiring a transaction manager. Who wants to sell more houses? Like in 90 days. So I'm going to introduce some transaction managers at the end of the presentation, and you're going to go talk to them. Because we see agents increase their production within 90 days of hiring a transaction manager. Because they just gave themselves more time. Whose time is valuable? Whose wives are mad at them because they're not at home enough with the family because they're running around doing everything? I know you won't raise your hand because you don't want your wife to know, but I know there's some of you in this room. Right? Oh, I have a hand right here, right?
Oh, wait, I have a question.
Okay, we'll get to questions in just a moment. Write it down for me, okay? And then I know Jim Chance is in the room. Do we have any other general managers or brokers in the room? Okay. Protection, right? Production and protection. A transaction manager protects you. They make sure that all the T's are crossed, the I's are dotted, everything is in writing, you're covered, so if there's ever a question of anything, it's taken care of, right? And for Jim and for Bob and for Nikki Ubaldini and all the brokers in the market, that's awesome. Because they're gonna have to be pulled into a courtroom just with you, and there's gonna be a difference if you've got a clean file that has every piece of documentation, has that one email that you need, right? Or you're going to be in a courtroom on a he said, she said basis. And how's that going to work out? Not very well, right, Jim? And then last, but probably most important, is enhancing your customer service for your clients. You could be out on Dale Mabry in Tampa trying to show property and you don't have the file in your car and your buyer calls you and you look disorganized. You don't know what's going on. This is the most important day of their lives. Some of them are purchasing a home for the first time ever and you don't know what's going on in their file. How does that make you look? Right? How many of you primarily work off referrals? How important do you think it is to have organization and a good customer experience in a transaction? Is that a huge effect on your referral business? Right? So if they have a personal assistant throughout the transaction to hold their hand, do you think that's going to enhance their experience with you as an agent? If you're calling them once a week and all you're having to do is check in because the transaction manager is taking care of everything, your conversation goes from putting out fires to asking for referrals, right? To talking about them and who do they know that want to buy or sell real estate. Right? You're not having to talk about the roof on the house that's caving in or the appraisal that's $2,000 off because your transaction manager is taking care of all that.